complex, much too complex, too complex, much too complex.
Welcome back to the Black Media Man Cave, where I do commentary and review on movies with an all-black cast or at least a black lead. Today's movie is the 1993 black western film Posse. Posse was directed by and stars Mario Van Peebles, who plays Jesse Lee, a no-nonsense gunslinging cowboy who has been sentenced to life in the military as opposed to being hanged for a crime he committed in his past. That was actually considered a choice at one point. He's backed up by quite a few black cinema stars, most of which already had decent careers or went on to have very good careers. People like Tiny Lister, Blair Underwood, Sally Richardson, Big Daddy Kane, Tone Loc, Isaac Hayes, Mario's father, Melvin Van Peebles, and many, many more. One thing I always liked about these old black movies is that they always made sure to maximize the black star power whenever they could. Posse took inspiration from old black westerns of the early to mid 1900s, many of which were exploitation films or what were referred to at the time as race films. These films usually starred an all-black cast, and even though many of them had white writers and directors, they were filmed and sometimes financed outside the Hollywood system. The films were primarily marketed to black audiences and were pretty successful all things considered, with many of the movies being considered classics. If all of that sounds familiar to you, it's because a lot of movies made today and in recent years follow that same blueprint, making movies outside of the Hollywood machine for a particular audience. Unfortunately, many of the films are lost, with only around 100 or so of the 500 plus films made known to be in existence. Posse set out to be a western for the more modern hip-hop audience of the early 1990s, evident by the fact that it stars two rappers and had a hip-hop heavy soundtrack. It wasn't just your average run-of-the-mill western drama, and tried to incorporate some comedy and action into it along with some true life history of the early 1800s. But can this cowboy drama wrangle up a good grade from me? Let's BlackTrack and find out. We start out with some voiceover narration by this old guy here, and I know I just said how narration is kind of taking the easy way out, but this situation is a little different. This guy isn't so much narrating the story as much as he's giving a quick history lesson about how it's been forgotten that 1 in 3 cowboys after Reconstruction were black, and how these stories have been lost to time and covered up by Hollywood. The old narrator is played by Woody Strode, an actor with around 90 credits to his name, which includes quite a few westerns. So having him be the guy to introduce us to this movie was actually a pretty nice touch. Plus we never hear from him again to the end of the movie anyway. We flash back to Cuba in 1898 during the Spanish-American War, where a company of black soldiers are getting absolutely destroyed by the opposing troops because they have a Gatling gun and the black troops, they just don't. They want to retreat and get the hell out of there, but this colonel named Colonel Graham doesn't want to hear no parts of that from Jesse Lee here. I mean, I get it. These dudes are only a little over 20 years removed from being slaves and are criminals on top of that. If ever there was a movie that should have been called The Expendables, it's this one. Colonel Graham is played by Billy Zane, who went on to get the role of a lifetime when he starred in Titanic. Dude always struck me as the type of guy who would star in anything, so it's kind of crazy that he stumbled on a movie that was once the highest grossing movie of all time. But I digress. He toys around with the idea of letting the company retreat, but not before demonstrating to Jesse what happens to people who try to desert.
Thank you. Would you turn profile, please? Turn profile, please. Shoot him. I mean, you do realize I'm giving you a chance to shoot a white man.
Yeah, I wouldn't have fallen for that one either. The dudes in the opposing army are basically white men too, so that is a poor proposition. The guy gets shot anyway, and since Jesse Lee doesn't seem to be motivated to lead his company anymore, Colonel Graham puts this guy Little J in charge, who's played by Stephen Baldwin. This Little J guy is supposed to be somewhat of a gambler, but he always finds a way to cheat his way to a win. So in a way, I guess you could say he kinda sucks at gambling. Colonel Graham has something of a manservant in this guy named Wheezy, played by Charles Lane. I don't think he's a criminal, so I'm not sure exactly how he found himself a part of this indentured servitude. He hates it though, and for good reason.
Jesse, did you know that this man is the last surviving member of the Motisa tribe? Yes, the Motisa tribe. I'll show you.
Motisa?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Motisa?
You gotta admit, Colonel Graham is at least a little bit funny, as far as egomaniacal, homicidal, psychopathic races go. The last mission didn't go how Graham expected it to go, so he sends Jesse Lee and his company on a stealth mission to recover whatever supplies and intel they could find. Only Jesse isn't going to be leading them this time. No, that honor goes to Little J here.
Say, Jesse Lee, what'd you do back in the States that Colonel liked you so much?
hell is this?
Damn, who turned out the lights?
This mission sounds more like a suicide mission to me, but I think that's the point. If they succeed, good. If they die, also good. They make a plan to decide to use the element of surprise, and it's funny that even though Little J is in charge, they completely ignore everything the swindler has to say. Damn, Jesse, did you not get the stealth memo? What's with the hand cannon? The mission immediately goes completely in the trash because the 10th Company sucks at subtlety. And during the raid, we get a good look at some of the other men in Jesse's unit. There's Angel, played by Tone Loc, this preacher guy who blesses every guy he kills apparently, and Old Bobo, played by Tiny Lister. When I saw this movie when I was younger, I always thought they were calling him A-Bobo with an A, like the guy from the Double Dragon video game. I was today years old when I learned that was spelled with an O instead of an A. They don't really find any ammo or war supplies or anything, but what they do find is much, much better. There be gold in this here jungle. Jesse Lee reacts like it's a setup, which is kind of strange because if it was, it would probably be a good idea to take it back to Graham, but instead he and his unit take off in an undetermined location with the gold. Predictably, they don't get far with it because Colonel Graham is like the Terminator. Somehow he always knows where Jesse Lee is. Jesse asks him if he knew about the gold, which confuses Graham, but before he can do a proper interrogation, Wheezy startles his horse, which causes all kinds of confusion. That gives Jesse and his posse enough time to counterattack, and Jesse a clear shot at Colonel Graham's head. Too bad for the Reverend though. But forget all of that. My favorite part of this is Old Bobo actually uppercutting the horse. Yeah, I mean, I saw the punch coming, but you don't really think a motherfucker's gonna actually punch a horse until it hits you. They still don't quite trust Wheezy F Baby here, but he convinces them that he knows the best way out of Cuba. The only problem with that is that they have to go as dead bodies. But that shouldn't be a problem for some big tough military guys like this.
He told me if I could see my reflection right up in that book, I was gonna be safe.
It's not working, Jess.
I like how Tiny Lister never had a problem playing against typecast. Most people know him as Debo, but I know him mostly as Zeus. And he never had a problem playing a big baby in a role. A baby that will jack you up. They end up in New Orleans, and even though the movie tells us it's New Orleans, I feel like I would have known anyway since Hollywood makes it seem like Mardi Gras is happening in New Orleans 7 days a week for the entire year. Jesse Lee is a bit of a weird dude, so he decides to leave the posse to have fun while he goes to do whatever the hell. Big Baby or Bobo doesn't want to be left alone with these ruffians, but Jesse just breaks out the book of poems to shut him up again like a glorified pacifier. Where's the first place you go when you've been in jail/military slavery for years? Straight to the brothel, of course. Wheezy is on first name basis with every woman in the joint, which scores him major points with the rest of the posse, even if he has been lying and telling these women that he's a commander in the army. Let that be a lesson to you fellas. It doesn't matter what you bring to the party. If you bring the women, you're the mother man for life. Little J ain't got time for no women though. Money over itches is this scammer's motto. He gets introduced to a couple of guys playing poker, but only one of them is important, and that's Father Time here, played by Big Daddy Kane. I love that name, and his explanation for why he calls himself that.
Now that's an interesting name. How come they call you that?
Well, now, because we can sit at this table for eternity and a day, and ain't nobody gonna be Father Time, ain't that right?
That's right.
I'm glad to see Big Daddy Kane get more than the 2 lines he had in The Meteor Man. Low key, him and Tone Loc were decent rapper actors. Turns out Father Time is just as much as a con artist as Little J, so they should get along just fine. This ain't got shit to do with nothing. Mario Van Peebles just wanted to show us that he'd been working out. Did this dude really leave his squad to go rent a separate room and practice his gunslinging and reminisce about his past life? Looks like the jig is up at the poker table because Father Time has been made. He and Little J make an escape through the brothel and end up in the room with the rest of the posse. There are strength in numbers if Angel can sober up long enough to help fight off the angry gamblers.
Out of here.
Don't make me change my mind.
Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick, tock.
What the hell was that about? Is Father Time a hypnotist too? Oh snap, let me find out Father Time has superpowers. Well, if he does, he better make use of them because his new friends just learned that Colonel Graham is alive, and none too happy about losing an eye. The posse start making a hasty retreat, and watch what happens when Little J throws a knife directly at Graham. He didn't even flinch. I'm telling you, this dude is an old Western Terminator. Not only can he track you no matter where you go, but he's clearly impervious to pain and completely unafraid of imminent danger. Yo, why does Angel always shoot his shotgun all wild? He completely misses everybody. I guess that was the true meaning of doing the wild thing. You got nobody but yourself to blame for that one, Angel. The posse escapes New Orleans and discover Jesse just posing in the woods looking all suspicious. Where were you when we needed you, you pretty boy ass nigger? Talk about being out of place. They roll into a quiet little town with a population of what looks like 12 and find a place to melt down the gold that they found to avoid suspicion. Jesse Lee also wants to make a special order for 5 gold bullets, and the blacksmith thinks that's a little suspect, but he ain't gonna ask no questions. As a matter of fact, Jesse Lee wants to make sure that he definitely doesn't ask any questions, because he asked Father Time to shoot him. Father Time is a little hesitant because, you know, murder and all, so Jesse makes up his mind for him, killing the blacksmith with one of the gold bullets. It's just like a black cowboy to not just kill somebody, but to kill him with drip. The kill triggers another one of Jesse's flashbacks, which shows that he actually knows this man from somewhere. Jesse tells a kid outside that Father Time and the outlaw posse just killed a blacksmith. So now Father Time can't just take off whenever he wants to. You one of us now, buddy. Jesse isn't done and goes on a casual stroll through the town, killing not just one, but 2 other guys on his way through town, both of which show up in the flashback. So I guess this is officially a revenge tale. The posse made their way out of town just before the Colonel Graham T-1800 shows up. And were they really stuffed in that tight-ass train car on top of horses? Sometimes the visual just isn't worth the sacrifice in logic. In another flashback, we learn why Jesse Lee went to prison in the first place, but unless I missed it, it's not really made clear who this random white man is that he shot. On top of that, it's highly unrealistic that they didn't just kill him on the spot. Bringing a suspect in alive is barely a thing now, so I know it wouldn't have been an option in the 1800s. I guess the movie needed to break up all the seriousness, so we get a weirdly out of place moment when the posse decides to skinny dip in the lake and just have a little fun up on Brokeback Mountain. Hey, don't put your face in that, that's how you get the cholera. Man, these dudes are really riding all the way out west for Jesse's little revenge mission. They look to be as far as Nevada when they come across a cart with some deceased black people. One of them is holding a paper that Jesse recognizes. In another flashback, we learn that his father had a dream to build an all-black town out west called Freemanville, and he was beaten and lynched for daring to bring prosperity to Negroes in this town. That's pretty much what this is all about. Jesse Lee is on a mission to kill the 5 men who killed his father, and he went to prison for this revenge. The revenge plot isn't really a bad idea story-wise, but it's here when Posse kinda starts to lose itself and starts doing too much, because they are about to introduce a lot of characters and side stories that they have absolutely no time to fully develop. That's not even to mention that Terminator Graham is still on that ass. Turns out that not everybody in this cart is dead. A little boy survived the attack, and Jesse takes him with him to the next stop on his rampage. The next stop is his father's dream come true, an all-black town in the place where Jesse Lee grew up. This is the least welcoming place they've been to though. Go figure. Damn, what kind of welcoming party is that? It's a shame because they have some of the coolest residents. There's Nipsey Russell and Isaac Hayes. So essentially this movie just changed musical genres as far as actors go. There's Officer Carl Winslow. Yeah, I know his name is Reginald Vell Johnson, but he's always been Carl Winslow to me, so that's his name from here on out. He's a hairdresser in this movie though, so talk about mismanagement of skills. We even get prostitute Pam Grier. At least I think she's a prostitute. The movie doesn't give her nearly enough screen time, which is a tragedy. So I don't even really know. Little J show likes what he sees though. And finally, there's Blair Underwood and Sally Fine Richardson, who are supposed to be a couple, but it's made very obvious that her heart definitely belongs to Jesse Lee. Wheezy F Baby tries to make himself at home at the one place he knows best, but this brothel clearly doesn't like money because they treat the posse like straight horse manure. That is until Jesse strolls up in the place. Thankfully, there's one person in this town who still likes him, so they get treated a little more respectfully after that. The singer in this saloon is Vesta Williams, a fantastic singer from the 90s who sadly died in 2011 at the age of 53. The song she sings in this movie is called Tell Me, and it's great. You should check it out. Carver, played by Blair Underwood, is the marshal in this here parts, and he wants to make sure Jesse and his posse ain't gonna start no trouble, you hear? He has a feeling that Jesse is here for a revenge mission, but I think as far as he is concerned, his worries are misplaced. See, Jesse ain't really came for no revenge. Jesse came for that gal. And wouldn't you know it, the first place Jesse visits is Papa Joe's place, who just so happens to be the father of Lana, Carver's woman. You ain't slick, Jesse. Papa Joe is played by Melvin Van Peebles, who is Mario Van Peebles' father, and the dude is funny as hell.
What are these ones here, Papa Joe?
Ku Klux Klan's heads. Looky, let's shoot a couple for old time's sake.
That's kind of big for targets, ain't it?
I just shoot him in the nuts like I do.
Damn, you fine girl. You look like you got Indian in your family. Jesse barely even had time to wash the funk of the trip off his back before he was able to talk Lana out them draws. Funny how he can drop everything for her, but when the posse needs him, this nigga is all in the woods and shit posing. Bobo has developed a thing for old Vesta here and takes her away for a little fun. Hey Debo, what about the rest of the posse? What posse? This might be a free black town, but they are still under an oppressive boot by the sheriff here named Bates, who comes through from time to time to show them who runs this place. He learns about Jesse Lee being back with a whole posse and decides he's going to take them in before things get out of hand. Hey, I wonder who even told the sheriff that Jesse was back in town. I wonder who would have a reason to snitch on Jesse Lee. Obobo and Papa Joe start getting beat up so that they would give up Jesse. But when the mob starts beating up on Wheezy, well, that's just too much for Little J here, and he decides to take on the mob by himself to save his posse. He does alright for a little while too, until they get the drop on him. It's not much, but I think this is a pretty good character arc for him. A cheating, no good gambler finally deciding to do something for somebody else other than himself. I wish they spent more time building up him and Wheezy's relationship a little more, but it's better than nothing. They beat Little J to death while everybody just stands there and watch while they take Obobo and Papa Joe to jail. Carver tries to protest, but this ain't the climate for that, fam. Jesse Lee ain't too happy about one of his men being killed and another two of his friends being taken to be hanged, and lets Carver know that this ain't what his father had in mind. The town is pretty unsympathetic to his feelings and essentially tell Jesse fuck you and the horse you rode in on. Nice to see Papa Joe taking this imminent death in stride.
Papa Joe, you ought to be working on saving your black soul.
Shit. I'm working on saving my black ass.
Since Jesse Lee is forced to take matters into his own hands, he hatches a pretty ingenious scheme to dress himself and the rest of his crew as Klan members to bust Joe and Obobo out of jail. It works, and just by chance, Jesse is able to scratch the 4th golden bullet off his list. What if that guy decided to take a trip somewhere to, I don't know, New York City or something that day? Would have messed the whole movie up. Jesse is there only one day and realized what nobody in town could figure out. And that's that Sheriff Bates and the Klan is trying to run them out of town so that they can profit off the new railroad that's going to be built through it. He tries to appeal to the townspeople to fight back, but it falls on deaf ears.
Well, I do believe this boy done got sunstroke. He about to start a damn war.
Okay, you're not Carl Winslow anymore. Your name is Reginald Vell Johnson. Right after I say that, I have to call him Carl Winslow again though, because him and a few other people do decide to help fight back, including Sheba baby. Just like he promised, Sheriff Bates rolls into town with a ton of men, but the last thing he expected was for the people to fight back as hard as they do. Dude is caught completely off guard by the whole town packing, and half his men get taken out right from the start. If you thought Bates was gonna go out like that without a plan though, then you are sadly mistaken. Hey, remember Terminator Graham? Yeah, I forgot about him too. But he Deus Ex Machina his way right into this battle, and he said Jesse Lee ain't the only one with that Old West drip. Them boys come through with the golden Gatling gun, and we already know that's like kryptonite to the posse. What's left of them anyway.
Can we all get along?
Why did they have to include that stupid ass line? I forgot this was a year after the riots, and every movie felt like they had to put that line in there somewhere. Carver is the only one that's not fighting, and that's because he has other priorities. Turns out he bought up all the deeds and was planning to sell them to Bates. So now we know who snitched that Jesse was even in town. Alana tries to talk some sense into him, but Carver tells her that this is a white man's world, and I'm just a squirrel. Father Time shows up to help a lady in need, but Carver's right-hand man distracts him long enough for Carver to shoot and kill Father Time. Damn, man, I feel like we barely know you. We didn't even get to find out the real story behind that watch and if it really has powers or not. Jesse Lee finally gets Bates and Carver when he wants them, and Bates wastes no time turning on Carver. Hey, that's what you get for bootlicking, buddy. Jesse Lee does a little diversion to get Bates into position, and I love the slow motion CGI bullet time effect we get for the final golden bullet kill. Really adds weight to the final kill. Or at least that would be the final kill if Posse made the story only about Jesse's revenge and abandoned this war desertion plot. That's right, Graham is still alive, and at this point, I don't think he cares about the goal, the war, or the fact that Jesse shot him in the eye. He just wants Jesse dead at this point. Graham takes Lana hostage and lures Jesse into the brothel. Obobo tries to get the jump on Graham, but the Terminator is too good for all that. Jesse takes out Graham's guards and we get an old-fashioned fist fight. I don't know why Jesse is still having these flashbacks about his father's attack. All those guys are dead. Despite his demons trying to get the best of him, Jesse gets the upper hand and manages to push Graham on a sword, finally killing him. Jesse and Lana help Obobo out of the saloon to safety, but before they can celebrate, the T-1800 comes back again for one more final scare, and Jesse has to put like 6 bullets in him plus knock him into an exploding building to finally kill him off. Y'all should probably still confirm that though. Why the hell wasn't Colonel Graham fighting in the war again? He could have won it all by himself. It's revealed that Obobo survived because of the book that Jesse kept giving him to keep him calm, so it turned out to be a lucky book after all. Damn, is Obobo actually gonna live? He looks like he's about to be hitting that old dusty trail. Jesse tells Obobo that with all the gold they have, they can rebuild the town better than ever, so we'll at least get a happy ending despite most of the posse being dead. Jesse lets the little boy read the poem that's in the book, and we do a transition and learn that the old narrator in the beginning was actually the little boy that they rescued before they got to the town. He's being interviewed by two reporters, and just in case you don't recognize them, they're played by the Hudlin brothers, Reginald and Warrington, who wrote, directed, and starred in the first House Party movie. Check out my video on House Party for more about that. The old narrator decides to give the reporters the old book of poems, and he looks longingly at photos of old black cowboys, including our posse here. But if I could start right here, this picture is problematic as hell. Angel died in New Orleans as soon as they escaped Cuba, which is exactly when they met Father Time, and they had no time for all 6 of them to be together all at one time. So when the hell did they take this picture? Let's get to the grade. As far as more modern day Western movies go, I think Posse nails it. As I've said before, I've never really been into Westerns. So when a Western movie comes along and keeps me interested and entertained throughout, I have to give it some props. I think the set and costume design was top notch, especially for a movie with a budget of only $10 million. And I like how the Western theme was tied into real black history without being overly preachy. The cast had some veteran actors, but majority of the actors, while not necessarily all new, did a fantastic job in their roles given to them. Even the rappers turned actors were very convincing, which is something musicians in movies are often criticized for not being. My only real gripe with the movie is the lack of attention placed on the posse themselves outside of Jesse Lee. I think some time could have been taken off exploring Jesse's revenge backstory and spent exploring the lives and motivations of the rest of the posse a little more. We didn't learn much about them that we didn't see on screen, and it might have been worth leaving the revenge story off altogether and only telling the story of them escaping the military and Colonel Graham, if it meant we would learn more about the rest of the posse. Despite that, I still think it tells a compelling tale with great pacing and interesting characters you genuinely care about. It does a good job balancing the action, drama, and comedy, and even though it can turn into cliche Western at times, it does just enough to distance itself from its inspirations. My grade for Posse is a B. As far as black Western movies go, this movie is at the top of my list. And that does it for this episode of the BlackTrack. Let me know what you thought about Posse in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And until next time, I'll holla at you.